everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Homework Help. My name is Crystal Cabray. For those that do not know me, I am the founder of Storyteller Planet and the fearless leader of Homework Help. And this month we are going to, let me share my screen. Da 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 da. There it is. Lost it for a second. One second. Share. Okay. This month we are doing character arcs and story arcs, the twins of storytelling. Now, if you're new here, just to set the bar of expectations, we are going to give highlights, we're going to give examples, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what character arcs and story arcs are. But we are not going to get into the weeds so far that we're falling asleep, okay? We're trying to have fun here. It is a peer-to-peer experience. It doesn't necessarily matter what stage of your writing that you are in. It only matters that you show up. So we are going to jump right into today's to-dos. First, we're going to define what a story arc is, and then we're going to define what a character arc is and the reason why you need both of them. And then we'll do a take-home exercise, and then we'll wrap it all up. And I'll show you guys also where some of this information comes from, because I pulled it directly from one of our mini courses. But that is for later. Right now, I need to introduce who we are going to be using today to explain character arcs and story arcs, because we're not just going to sit here and list a long, lengthy list of definitions. We need people, we need stories, we need a reason to care. So last month, we went on a spiel about epic. And those that missed last month's video, it was Epic is based on the Odyssey. It is a musical made by Jorge Rivera Herranz. I always trip up on the second name. And so many other people. We're not going to get into the weeds of what Epic is, but we are going to be using it as examples. And the other example we're going to be using today is Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. And Disney is probably going to flag me for using one of their videos later on as an example. But, you know, we're gonna try our best. This is humbly my favorite Lion King movie to date, including Mufasa, even though Mufasa was kind of cute. But Lion King 2, Simba's Pride is like chef's kiss, and we are going to get into it. So here is your spoiler warning. I'm not holding back. We need to dive into the story, so that's what we're going to do. So what is a story arc? It is a list of the most important events of your story from beginning to end, and this is the short list. This is not encompassing every little nuance and cranny that you can have for a story arc, but we are going to focus on exposition, inciting incident, rising action, the lowest point, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution. And some of you might remember this from when, you know, some English class or creative writing class where you see like the arc. This is like the summary and meaty bits of that arc. But we're going to start with the exposition because it is one everyone knows about. It's literally introducing everything that is happening probably in the first 15 minutes of your story. Who's there? Why are they here? Why do we care that they're here? So giving an example of how you would introduce characters that you already kind of are familiar with, but it's a whole new fresh take. In Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, Simba has a daughter named Kiara. And Kiara is just like Simba, a very spiteful individual who does not listen and wants to understand more about the world around her. And she ends up, by accident, kind of stumbling into the Outlands. I almost forgot what they were called for a second. And meets a young cub named Kovu. And they just, you know, trucking along. They end up, you know, running away from alligators and all that. But this innocent little meeting ends up becoming something greater, which we call the inciting incident, the problem that disrupts everyday life. Because Kiara and Kovu met, their parents found them, there was tension, they left. Years went by. Now it's Kiara's first hunt, and she believes that she has the trust of her father. She's going out there to prove herself not only as like a princess, but also as the leader that her father wants her to be. She finds out in the middle of her hunt, which is also not going well, that her like basically babysitters for her entire life, Timon and Pumbaa, the best babysitters out there that you could possibly hire in the Pride Lands, um, they are basically watching her from a distance. And she's like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I'm going away from the Pride Lands. Mind you, in the background, there is a whole nother plan happening for this day. The enemy, which is happens to be Kovu's mom, has come up with a plan to basically sabotage Kiara's first hunt and make Kovu seem like the hero that saved her, which is exactly what ends up happening. And Simba, being, very overprotective father and also the king of the Pride Lands, is like, get out of here. And Rafiki of all people are like, he saved your daughter's life. You need to like listen to what he says. And his whole spiel is that he's a rogue and that he's here to be a better person and blah 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 blah. Make a long story short, they end up all going back to the Pride Lands, and the plan has been set in motion. The rising action is a combination of things that happen from this moment, the inciting incident, the thing that disrupted everything. Because from this moment on, Kovu and Kiara are becoming more intertwined. They're getting to know each other. They're trying to understand their differences. They're, teaching each other things that they didn't know because one was from the Pride Lands and one was from the Outlands. And, that dynamic, that is the kind of, not I want to say like montage-esque way to show rising action, because it's not a montage, it's just a series of scenes. But you want to establish the conflict that is trying to be solved while still like keeping that essence of tension in there. Like these guys are over here. One's teaching. Kovu's trying to teach Kiara how to hunt. Meanwhile, Kiara's trying to teach Kovu how to have fun. So this like back and forth, you see how there's a conflict happening not only within each individual, but as like everything that's happening around them. Because you have the not so great plan in the background with Zira and the family of the Outlands trying to sabotage the Pride Lands. But you also have this like interwoven love story. So it's like you're meeting the characters at a level that is the reason why we care. Because I know in the beginning it's like, why do we care? Why do we care? This is why we care. We care to see them be, for lack of a better word, because I know they're lions, human. We get to see their journey. We get to see the characters. I call it the Friends effect, even though I know Friends is not the only cast of characters, but it sucks you in because you want to know what happens next. And when they hit something like the lowest point, it is very heart-wrenching. This really asks the question, how low can you go? In The Lion King 2, there's a moment that Nala tells Simba, you should give Kovu a chance. He's not Scar, because he does kind of look like Scar. He's not Scar's kid, but he was raised by Scar, whatever. All the lions that followed Scar went to the Outlands. That's like the myth. So Simba takes Kovu to the place where there was the fire at the very beginning of the inciting incident, and is trying to teach Kovu that you can be better. It is possible. If you want to be better, you can be better. And unfortunately, in this moment, Kovu unintentionally fulfilled his goal, which was to get Simba alone. That's the only way you could technically sabotage the Pride Lands, is to get the king alone to ambush him. Kovu actually helped Simba get out of the ambush, but it came at a cost. his brother, which is this is him down here, Nuka, who is very estranged, really wanting his mom's love and approval, will do literally anything for it kind of guy, ends up dying because Kovu helps Simba escape the ambush. That was technically the plan all along. And this is a low point because not only is Kovu making the choice as like one of the main characters to say, I really love this girl, I love this family, I was wrong, and everything that I was planning was wrong. But it comes at the cost of his own family, like literally his own family. It's not figuratively at this point. And that leads you into the climax, the pinnacle point where everything literally explodes and falls apart. And the main character is faced with the conflict that has basically been rising to the surface this entire time. So even though Kovu saves Simba, Simba realizes that this was a whole plot in the first place and banishes him from the Pride Lands. And Kiara is obviously in love with Kovu and is devastated and ends up running away to try to go find him. They find each other and they realize that they're in love, and no matter what, they love each other, they're meant to be together, and that's that. Meanwhile, Zira is over here plotting to basically go to war. She said, I have been hurt by Simba for the last time. I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm going to war. So you have the Pride Lands and the Outlands going literal war, and you have the prince and the princess of each kingdom essentially about to run away and elope. And Kiara realizes that's not necessarily the way, and that the only way that things are going to get better is through them, that the change has to come through them, because not only are they like the next in line for the throne, but they are the leaders of their people. They are the catalysts of the story. And you guys know I love a good video. So we're going to watch the climax of this story. And it's a two-parter because they didn't put it in.
Over, Simba.
Excuse me, Zira. Trying to introduce you. It is a two-part video because I guess putting the whole thing would flag it. So we'll play the first part and then we'll play the second part, and then, you know, we'll continue. But I just had to preface that. So okay, Zira, you can talk.
It's over, Simba. I have dreamed of nothing else for years.
Boy, does she need a hobby.
Last chance, Zira. Go home.
I am home. Attack! His jaw. Eat him up. Get them. Do what you must.
What do we do? There's only one thing we can do, Pumbaa. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's our motto. I thought our motto was Hakuna Matata. Pumbaa, stop living in the past. We need a new motto. Yeehaw! Like I said, let's get going!
Where's your pretty daughter, Nala? Vitani.
Don't anybody move. This thing's loaded. I'll let you have it. Yeah. Talk about your winds of war.
his side.
Daddy, this has to stop.
You're even weaker than I thought. Get out of the way!
You'll never hurt Kiara. Or Simba. Not while I'm here. Stay out of this.
A wise king once told me, we are one. I didn't understand him then. Now I do.
But they...
Them? Us. Look at them. They are us. What differences do you see?
Vitani! Now!
No, Mother. Kiara's right. Enough.
If you will not fight, then you will die as well. Where are you going? Get back here!
Let it go, Zira. It's time to put the past behind us.
I'll never let it go! This is for you, Scar!
Kiara!
Kiara!
Give me your paw. Zira, come on. I'll help you.
Kiara.
Daddy, I tried.
So, when we're talking about the climax, I'm gonna back it up here a little bit. You don't have to, but especially in this case with such a diverse ensemble cast of characters, everyone's involved. Everyone is involved. And not that you have to highlight them and be like, ah, yeah, that person's there, but in the sense of if they are a major part of the story, they should also be a part of the climax. Even if they only get like a really tiny fight scene, they were there in the fight. So after the fight is over, you have the falling action. It's literally what happens directly after the conflict. And it's important to hone in on that moment and really wonder like, okay, directly after the fight, directly after the dust has settled and the villain is gone, for, or even if it's just a villain is gone for now, for the moment, what does that feel like? And really honing in and resonating with that. For Lion King 2, it is more of an acceptance. I could play the thing, but in a sense, it's the acceptance that Simba's like, all right, we're all one big family, and there's no real need for divide, and we are one. So we're just going to do that. And that's basically like the summary of that. But you want to make sure that if there's like a reason to say 6 months later, or a year later, or even, a couple days later, you give a strong ending to the story that you're trying to tell. It's the bow before the credits. It's the last thing that you are going to leave either your reader or your viewer with, and you want it to be potent. You want to feel like all the questions have been answered. The journey that the characters have been on has actually come to a conclusion, even if it's like book 1 of 12. Like, you want to give that satisfied, like, feeling. Like in this case, Kovu and Kiara get married and they all become one big happy family. But you want to make sure that that is clear, and even if you leave it on a cliffhanger, you want them to be like that's it? That's it? That's how you want to leave them with the resolution. And ask all these questions that I've written here, because you guys know that I put my notes up here. I put them in a better format this month, but I put my notes up here for you guys to be able to read and digest as you please. But there we go. I'm like, where's my little bar on the bottom? But we are going to move on to character arcs, because that was resolution is the end of the story. So now we're going to take it back to the very beginning, because the most important events of your story, seen through your character's point of view, is what a character arc is. And as you see, there are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 bullet points for character arcs. Yeah, it is necessary for you to have all of them, in my humble opinion. And here's why. This is something that normally actors think about, because what you're doing is you're diving into the inner world of your character. And that can sometimes be tricky, especially like if you're writing a different gender or a different point of view entirely. It can be very challenging to try to like connect with that. But at the end of the day, humanity is humanity. And there are things that connect us. And this list is pretty much the summary of what most humans go through in the course of a story. So let's break it down with Odysseus, shall we? The first two that we have here are introductions, flaws, and strengths. So let's just like hit them all home. This is Odysseus. He's a leader. He's a devoted husband, a loving father. We're in Greek times. It's the Odyssey, so Greece. Odysseus just wrapped up a war. He was, the whole Trojan horse story. And then after he was done with that, he had to drop a baby from a wall. And now he's going home with his best buddies in Athena. And they're hungry. And they need to stop on an island. And this island kind of got food. It's in a cave with the Cyclops. And they end up killing his favorite sheep. And that ends up being what? The inciting incident. How? Well, there are two things that happen with this event, and then I'm going to go into the trigger and the struggle and how this all connects. One thing is Odysseus' best friend gets literally killed with a club. And then after he escapes by stabbing the Cyclops in the eye, he loses his best friend Athena, because he left the Cyclops alive instead of killing him. I guess mercy isn't in Athena's style, but whatever. In this inciting incident time period, you have the trigger and the struggle. So a trigger is an event that forces your character out of its comfort zone. Yeah, I think losing your best friend and seeing your mentor like leave is pretty out of a comfort zone, just a little bit. And then the struggle. How does this journey challenge their strengths and their weaknesses? Now, up until this point, Odysseus has tried to be a good guy. Like, yeah, he had to drop an infant from a wall, but that was just because if not, the gods predicted that his entire family and kingdom would be slaughtered. Then what the heck was the point of the last 10 years of him fighting the war? These are the kind of like internal struggles that the character has to deal with. As you're going through your story and you're mapping out all the events, there's the underlying humanity of what your character is going through. And these are like two very potent moments because remember, before this, there wasn't really much that was out of the norm. Yes, Odysseus was at war, but he was at war for 10 years. He was used to being at war. The war ended, like the end. And a new journey began. And a new inciting incident happened. So once you have those bad things happen, because that moment of him stabbing the Cyclops and leaving the Cyclops alive led to Poseidon creating a storm that blocked his way home for another 10, 12 years, whatever it was. And this brings out two things: development and struggle. How does your character react to all the changes happening in their lives? So Odysseus has to, and he escapes Poseidon. He ends up on some island. He has to eat a flower to defeat a goddess, to go to the underworld, to not get help, to do this, that, and the third. All of these events that are happening are changing his character. Before this, he had a whole song that literally one of the lines was, I've been like, so much has changed, but I'm the same. And your character cannot stay the same. As I explained in great nauseam last month, your characters need to change. But that struggle that is happening and that change that is happening, what does that do? What is the truest form of your character in the greatest amount of stress? And you see that with Odysseus because he goes from a guy who's like, I believe in love and really, trying to put my best foot forward and solve things with cunning and cleverness and everyone could stay alive and happy roses, to the guy who's literally like slaughtering people by the end of the story. So, did I put that twice? I did. And then you get it twice. So how nice. That threw me off. Sorry. Buffering. So, in this, how do the losses that come about, like in the lowest point, fuel your character to eventually, make the right decisions to get to the climax and defeat whatever is bothering them, whatever is the whole point of this struggle in the first place. You want to make sure that you're not giving just, oh, I killed this person just so my character could go Super Saiyan. You don't want to do that. You have to give a meaning to someone's death. In Odysseus's case, his entire crew dies. Towards the very end, it's literally like a choice between himself or his crew, and he is like, I am the king. It is me. And not in like not to be selfish, but to be selfish. So those kind of choices and the overcoming of all the obstacles that happen lead Odysseus to eventually defeating his foe. But all the things that he was put through were deliberately placed there so he could have all of these things that he learned to defeat his foe. It wasn't just, oh yeah, let's just kill his best friend off for shiggles. Like, no, he had to die. Because if not, then they would have probably not escaped that cave the way that they needed to, because Odysseus realized the gravity of the situation. So you have the confirmation, the transformation, and the final form. So in this case of Odysseus, his confrontation was he had all the tools he needed and he still somehow was like losing his fight. And I got to the point that it's like, if I don't do what I need to do, I'm gonna die. And the story's gonna end. And that's that. That's the kind of stakes you don't have to, but are most recommended to put your character through. You don't have to be literal life and death, but it's one of those things that if your character doesn't put their all into it, they're never going to overcome this obstacle. Like, this is the final fight. And in that final fight, your character goes through a transformation. They have, they have embodied everything that they have gone through. And now they have to put it into practice and literally give everything to the last drop. And this is where the pinnacle of the climax comes through, because your character either wins or they don't. And if they don't, I hope there's another story, because your readers and your audience are going to be flabbergasted. Believe me, I know. So when they reach their final form, the pinnacle, their true self, the super duper uber saiyan of this world, this story, that is when you finally get a satisfying ending to whatever the fight is in your story. There is a resolution. The evil villain is either dead or your hero is dead, and whatever this journey is officially come to an end. And once that is over, you have to reflect and really think about the impact of the journey on this character. Think about it. Odysseus started with his friends, and they went out to war, and each of them had a family. They had people that they loved that were waiting for them. And the only person that came home was Odysseus. Odysseus had to endure things that were out of his control. That were literally like gods and goddesses and trials and choices and tribulations and all the things. And he now comes home. He reunites with his son, he reunites with his mentor, and he reunites with his wife. And each of those encounters are super potent, because they show a different side of what he was fighting for. He fought to come home because he wanted to be a father to his son. He fought home because he wanted to prove to Athena that he wasn't a failure at being a warrior of the mind that she wanted him to be. He wanted to come home, and though he was put through circumstances that he was not necessarily faithful, especially, if you're looking at the actual Odyssey and history. And all he wanted to do was just come home to his wife and be the best husband he could be in this story. Please don't start with the whole truth about Odysseus. Let's just let it be bright and sunny for this epic journey. And really taking the time to think about that from your character's point of view is going to make it hit home. It's the reason why this is probably, I believe, the third video in a row that I have used Epic as an example in some capacity, because the way that it impacted me shows different nuances of how you can incorporate this in your story without, it's like tale as old as time. This is like the formula for story. So being able to use it as an example is such a privilege. But I say all this to say, you need both of them. The outer world colors our inner world. Our inner world affects how we react to the outer world. It is all connected in real life and in fiction. We are always influenced by the things that we absorb from the moment we open our eyes in life to the moment we close them. And everything that we feel is valid, and it shapes how we move in life. And we have to remember that when it comes to our characters, because it is hard to get in the weeds of emotion and heart and grit when we're writing something truly tragic or truly personal. And it is our job as storytellers to get that deep, because if we don't, then our characters become very shallow and very predictable. And then we start telling stories that don't end up in the Hall of Fame. And we are aiming for stories that, at bare bones minimum, resonate with people and leave them thinking about it when they're done absorbing the story in whatever way it is. So the take home exercise that I have for everyone today is a I call it a template, but it's an outline that combines the two, because I really would like you guys to sit with this and think about the different points of your story. And like I said, this came from a larger course, so there is more to this that I will talk about in just a second. But really sit with this outline. This is everything that we talked about today. So I just, you know, put it in a digestible format, so when you are in the outlining phase or the brainstorming phase, you can kind of look at these and say, oh, well, what is my character's flaw and strength? You know, what is the climax going to be? You don't have to go in any specific order, but these are the kind of marks that you want to hit in your story, because they are the truest form of how stories go, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily the formula, it's not the way to tell a story, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most impactful ways that you can hit all the points, but still make it your own and make it fresh and do essentially whatever you want to do with it. So that is all I have for you today, but I am going to show you guys the course that this comes from. Actually, I'm going to show you how to get there directly. So this is the homepage from a desktop point of view. So you just go to mini courses, and then you scroll down a little bit and you go to the fundamentals of writing fiction. And this has a breakdown of, not enroll now, view all the steps. And this is where everything comes from. And what we were talking about today was story arcs and their purpose. And this is probably the meatiest part of this entire mini course. So if you want to know more, and it's only $5, you can hop on here and, like I said, just go to mini courses and hit the fundamentals of writing fiction. You can also join the MMG. If you decide to take this course, you are automatically enrolled, just because, you know, it's nice to have a buddy, and we are clarifying, you know, the awesomeness of what the Mythical Manuscript Guild is. So there will be updates in the month to come, because next month is going to be so much fun, you guys. I'm very excited. So there's that. Oh, also, thank you for everyone that participated in our April Earth Month, Green Week, all the things that we did in April. We raised $15 for Mother Earth. We donated to the Natural Conservancy, and we are just so tickled that our fundraiser was a success, because even $1 is a success to go towards our future of, you know, breathing air and having clean water. I think it's pretty important. And also, if you want to keep in the loop of everything that is happening, just go to What's New, and you can check out not only the comics that we have, but the monthly newsletter. And on the 15th, we drop our mid-month check-in. So, you know, we have all the good nuggets and things here on this page. It is also Mental Health Week, so please feel free to read this and take the time to think of your mental health. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and wish you guys a fantastic day and the rest of the month. And I will see you guys next month for, I'm not sure what topic we're doing next month, but it is going to be fantastic, because on the 15th of June, we are celebrating Storyteller Planet's 5th anniversary. Even though we have only been open to the public for a year, we have a whole boatload of explaining to do, but that's enough out of me. I love you guys. I will see you next month, and have a wonderful day. Bye.